Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today I've got what I hope will be a pretty informative video for you. We're going to talk about how to build up a thick clear coat. Now just before we jump into how exactly to do this and what materials to use and that sort of thing, which is all part of what we're going to cover, or at least some examples, we're going to talk about first why you would want to do this. There are some people out there who think you need a thick clear coat for everything, just for the sake of having a thick clear coat. I disagree. In many contexts, particularly, I mean, if you're watching me, you probably watch mostly because I paint guitars, right? In many contexts, having a thinner clear coat is better. And really, with any finish, as you continue to build it, as you go further and further, there are more opportunities for a product failure. So you'll see companies like House of Color, for example, that will warranty their paint. If you use their system, they'll warranty their work up to a certain thickness. And once you get beyond that, I think it's like 13 mil or something, which is thick, but still, once you get beyond that, no warranty, you're done. So it's important to understand that you don't always need to have or want to have a thick clear coat, but there are circumstances in which you will want it. So I have an example here of a guitar where I've done a crackle finish, right? And this was a crackle finish using spray cans. So it's got a texture to it. Now there are lots of different texture finishes, the ripple effect, for example, anything where you're using a material to texture the paint surface, it's gonna end up with some topography to it, if you will, some variances in height. And if you want a perfectly smooth finish at the end, you need to bury those. Now this one I'm not sure that I'm going to because I like this, it kind of looks like alligator skin, but in any event, this is the type of thing where if I want a perfectly smooth finish, as you can see, I don't have one just from putting my clear coat on there. So I need to build it up thicker so that when I go to sand it smooth, I'm not gonna run through my black in this case and turn this thing back into just a red and orange guitar. Similarly, if you're trying to bury, vinyl graphics or anything like that, you're gonna want the same kind of deal. Even if you're doing a little bit of engraving into a paint job, you're gonna end up with some scratches in there that you can bury under clear coat if you do it properly. So let's talk about how you're gonna do that and what kind of paints you're gonna wanna use. First off, the easiest, simplest answer is more coats. That's how you get it thicker, you add more coats. But that's not a complete answer because depending on the paint system that you're using, the way that you add more coats changes. And on some, like for example, a wipe-on poly, this stuff is designed to go on very thin. So the number of coats that you're gonna need if you're doing a wipe-on finish and trying to bury something, tons, brutal. It'll take forever. You're gonna have to wait between coats so that you can sand so that it'll adhere properly. It's just not a good idea. If you're looking for a thick finish, this is not the type of thing that you want. The same could kind of be said for the modified tung oil, for example. Like this is a fantastic product and it's great for a thin finish, like the kind that you would want on a guitar neck or on a guitar that's made out of nice wood. Awesome choice for that sort of thing. But if you're looking to build up a really thick finish, this is a wipe-on product generally. You can brush it on with a foam brush, but still, you're not gonna build up a big material thickness. And if you do, it's not gonna harden properly. Now don't get me wrong, this is still better than, for example, a pure tung oil. That stuff goes on insanely thin and takes a ton of coats to get sealing coverage at all. It's still a great product for the appropriate uses, but you're not gonna build it up real thick. If you're gonna use a poly or something like that, you want a brush on that goes on nice and thick, or you want to spray. So this, for example, is a PPG Omni Automotive Clear. It's a two-part, it hardens, and you can build up a thicker finish with this. If you're doing a spray clear, this sort of thing, what you wanna do is spray 3 to 4 coats at a time. Don't go beyond that, even if you need more coats than that. Don't go beyond that in one session because then you're in a situation where the bottom layers will flash, you wait your 10 to 15 minutes, you spray another one, same happens, and then when all's said and done, the airflow over the top layer causes it to harden, causes it to dry properly, but you can still have some issues with the stuff underneath not drying properly and solvent trying to escape. Now these catalyzed clears are unique in that once they mix, they should cure. All right, even if you were to mix them together and seal them in the can, you'd end up with a can full of hard plastic at the end. I mean, it's not epoxy, so it wouldn't be good, but in any event, you'd end up with it curing to some extent just by virtue of it being mixed. But still, as it cures, it gases off. As it cures, it releases solvents, and you don't want that to happen with a skinned over layer on top. So don't go beyond 4 coats generally with this sort of thing. If you're building up a water-based finish, people often do something like 10, 12 coats. The guy from Highline Guitars does it all the time. But you do need to give ample drying time between coats. Let that stuff dry out properly, give it a light scuff, and then you can go on from there and use the mechanical adhesion for a water-based coat to keep building it up. Whereas with this stuff, you can do 4 coats on chemical adhesion, spraying within the flash times. You don't sand it between those, but then you need to let it dry for a day or two, sand it, and then you can go ahead and continue building up from there. Now you may find yourself wanting to build up a thick coat of lacquer, something with a nitrocellulose base or like a Watco that you can brush on, that sort of thing. I don't think lacquer is the greatest choice if you're trying to build up a thick finish, but you can still do it. There are more risks, and lacquer is a softer finish than, for example, a polyurethane. So anything polyester based, polyurethane, whatever, that stuff is going to harden more. Lacquer is going to be softer, it's going to age over time, it's going to soften when it heats up, and lacquer, unless it's catalyzed, doesn't cure, it only dries. So yeah, there are some things to consider there, but if you have made the decision to build up a thick coat of lacquer, there are a couple things you should know. One, lacquer will melt into itself. Anything nitro-based melts right into itself, so you don't need to sand between coats. You can always get that chemical adhesion, even if you're outside of the notional flash time that you might have for these. But you should put it on in lighter coats, all right? So that's one thing. You don't want to build up a really thick coat of lacquer. Sometimes you can get away with it, but it's got more of a chance to shrink when that happens. And if it shrinks, it can crack, it can craze, all sorts of stuff. So people do find themselves putting on coats of spray nitrocellulose lacquer. Everything looks good. 2, 3, 4 days later, it starts to crack. A month later, it starts to crack even more. It checks, they call it, and get checking and stuff like that. That's great for an aged finish if that's what you're going for, but you're probably not if you're trying to build up a thick coat, and it will look very, very crackly if you do that. All right, let's touch on what's going to, I think, be probably a popular choice, and that is spray cans. Spray cans, generally we're talking solvent-based stuff, so I've got a couple examples here. We've got the Rust-Oleum 2X Clear. 2X, different than 2K. We've talked about this in another video. Check that out if you don't know the difference. This stuff operates kind of on the same basis as the catalyzed stuff. 3, 4 coats, then stop. Give it a couple days, give it a week, then sand it, and then continue building it up, and repeat. This stuff is acrylic based. It takes, a couple weeks to really dry. If you layer it up like crazy, it's gonna take 6 weeks, or sometimes it never dries. I do hear from people fairly frequently who say, look, I painted this thing 2 months ago. If I push on it, I still leave a fingerprint. It's acrylic based. You have to be careful with that. You have to build it up in relatively light groups. A better choice, albeit a more expensive one, is to go with a 2K, like the Spray Max 2K Clear. We've got clear coat matte here. There's also gloss clear coat. If you're building up a bunch of this stuff, use the gloss first, let it dry, sand it, and then come in with this. But this is a catalyzed paint. So we've got our activator here, comes in the cap. You put that into the bottom, you smack it to break a can on the inside that has the catalyst, and then it behaves exactly like this stuff. The problem is, once you activate it, it's now catalyzed. So it will harden in the can over time, and it usually takes only a day or two. You can probably get away with a 3-coat session one day, wait 24 hours, scuff, and then if you're lucky, do it again the next day. Don't put it somewhere too warm if you're doing that. The heat can sometimes speed up the reaction. But the problem with this is it's not really designed, it's good for building up thicker coats, it's a good paint for it, but it's not really designed for you to do multiple sessions over the course of any kind of prolonged period of time, like a couple days, for example, with one can, for obvious reasons. So it gets expensive. These things up here in Canada are like 25 bucks a shot. It's gonna be a pricier option. Another one that Rust-Oleum makes that actually works really well for this is this Glitter Clear sealer. This stuff's actually not bad, and it is designed to seal in their glitter paint, which has a texture to it. It's thick, textured glitter that gives a hell of a sparkle, but leaves you with a really rough surface. And that's what this stuff is for, to seal that in. So if you're looking for a thick coat of clear with a spray can, this stuff's actually a great option. Give it a try. You can get it at Home Depot. Works well. All right, guys, that is it for this one. I imagine there will probably be some questions here, so feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and I will do my best to answer them. And I've got a few viewers that will probably also take a crack at answering them, and they're usually right. So, guys, if you're watching this and you know the answers, feel free. Help each other out. I always appreciate it when you do, and I'm sure the people getting the help do. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Remember to subscribe so you can see what happens with this guitar, among other things. Have a good one.